All right, I'd like to call to order the March 18th normally scheduled Board of Public Works meeting. Start with the invocation. Lord, let us thank you for all you have bestowed on us. We pray that you gift to us the wisdom to determine the best path for this meeting. We ask that you direct our decisions to provide the best outcome for our dedicated employees and citizens for whom they serve. Watch and protect our employees in the dangerous jobs they perform, and watch all of us in all we do carrying out our duties in this gathering. For these we are grateful. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do we have any comments from the audience? Nobody signed up, and seeing none, we'll move right into Darren's general manager report.
All right. Thank you very much. I really have kind of two items. Number one, we have the election of Proposition S coming up on April 2nd. And I'm gonna go through a couple of slideshow with you real quick. One of the things that people have been asking for and that I want to be able to share is, why do we need this? And we've talked about it quite a bit, but one of the things that I'm going to be presenting, the next meeting, there's two meetings that are fairly important that the Stormwater Action Committee is going to be presenting at. One of them is on March 21st, 7 o'clock at the American Legion Hall. And it's a public meeting. This is the first one where they're saying, come one, come all. And so we're hoping that thing is full, and we'll be there. And I'm going to share this block of photos with what we're doing. And so all of this, let me show you. Here's my slideshow that we're going to be giving. First of all, here is Grand Avenue. This is the 400 block of Grand Avenue. A couple of, if I hit, do I have the control of it here? You do. Thank you very much. Okay. It was a significant rain, but if you'll look, what's interesting is over, if you can see my pointer, right there is a storm drain. Right over here is a storm drain. On the opposite side, there's one right here as well, and it's kind of up here. All of those storm drains, you see that water, it's coming, it's hitting those grates and bouncing right up and over. And most of that's because they're full of dirt, and they're not functioning, and we have not cleaned them in quite a while. This is Martin Street. This is about a 4-foot tall ceiling. But again, if you'll look on the side, what's significant here, if you'll see all this cracking on this is the ceiling. That you can all see is a pretty significant crack, and that we can anticipate in the future some failure there. Martin Street again, sidewall blowing out and turning in. And you can see that this is still wet. Now there's been some pretty significant flows through there. That one's clean, but this is not. Now, the date is 2015. It's been a while. But this is the amount of garbage, and those stones are staying there. This is on Wyconda, so again, a different street. This is Highway 79 in Union. If you'll look at this, we've got on this side another passage. Here's this one. The cost of fixing that will be fairly significant trying to do it. This was Highway 79 in Union. We talk about this being an issue of safety for roads, and that's exactly the case. When this stuff falls through, when this fails, it is driving, it is roads that become the issue. This is on Chestnut, and what's really fun about Chestnut is those were actually pipes that are put inside of others. Again, this is the road where it collapsed inside. Inside of that, this is about probably a 36-inch pipe, and the amount of garbage, that's all black, decomposing stuff that's in that pipe. We talk about the cost and the volume of dirt that it's going to take for us to clean this system alone, every bit of that is going to be taken to a landfill, and we're going to have to pay for it as a hazardous material. So you can see there's the concrete with the pipe that was stuck inside of that to try and fix it a long time ago. There's again those pipes. One pipe that is separated and offset almost by 30% of that pipe out of balance. This is Prospect Avenue. Again, if you'll look at this nice corrugated pipe, it's completely rotted through here, and on this side, that will be collapsing in the near future. This is Holman Drive. This is next to some construction, a structure. What is failing? Again, we've got corrugated pipe that was put in probably 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and now it's starting to fail. So we have more and more of those failures. This is Warren Barrett and South Side. You can see where the concrete has given way. This whole above ground system has opened up. Martin Street. If you can see way back there, that is a soccer ball that was in there. Again, if you can estimate what the volume of that is, the volume on that is fairly significant. And it's not just little stuff. It's all of the gravel, dirt, etc. Again, every bit of that is going to be hazardous materials. This is what it looks on the top when we have a failure. That is part of the edge of a concrete cap. It failed. The stormwater went underneath it, created all of that sinkhole, and the roadway, your asphalt is what's given way, which makes it a very hazardous situation. You wouldn't want to drive on or over that. This again is Chestnut. This is a situation where we're going in between homes and buildings. And so this is the hole, and there's a safety issue there for anybody that might be coming through. The holes are not only causing problems for highways or roadways and driving, those are, let me go back, wrong way, right here. Can you read that right there? Those are telecom. That's a bank of telecommunication lines that are all through there. And so when this stuff starts to fail, we have other utilities that are equally in question. This was an old bricked grate that opened up. It allowed all of the stormwater to come down and through. That brick way has failed. And again, that's probably old. While we have some of the newer materials failing, straight concrete structures, we now have the old brick that's fallen apart. And that is our pipe in there. Again, it's probably 60% full of dirt that we're going to have to take out. And they took care of that one, but it was probably a 20, 30-foot fix when we've got hundreds and hundreds of feet of pipe under there. This is another Paris Avenue. So this is not only in one area. Again, this is the top of that storm, while this is the side. And you see where it's blown, it's been lifted, and all of that went into the pipe or into the stormwater structure. And this is a meter pit right here, or valve pit. What is that, Matt?
Meter pit.
Okay, so I'm right, it's meter pit. This is Church Street. Again, you can't see there was a small break in the pipe back in here, but it erodes and takes everything underneath the roadway and creates this dangerous roadway. This is Church Street again. This is the pipe in here, and all of this structure has been left. This is on Vine. You'll see that this is a wonderful roadway, while this entire corner had fallen off and eroded. And you can see inside, while this has failed, inside you can see the amount of debris and stone that has fallen in. Then we go to Union. This is interesting. If you look back in here, This doesn't, if we had the lights off, and we're not telling you to do that, there's actually another section of concrete where that roof has settled by about a foot to 8 inches. So the pipe that is connecting to, it's already slid this much. And all of that is in question as to what it's structurally sound. If you look down here, this is all of that stonework that is starting to fail, where someone else had already put a concrete cap, at least on this end. And those are some significant rocks and chunks of concrete that came from somewhere. This is Stevens Drive, another location. This is a grate with the inlet right here, and all the way around it, it has failed. This is the old hospital. This is underneath here. There's a great big opening. This is where you would be parking. That's not a good thing. Inside, this is what's underneath all of that. This has got pieces that have fallen through, but what's really concerning is you have the floor, the heave that's under here that's all broken, and you've got it starting to pull away here, and this is an entire catchment area. And so that is not building confidence in what's in the ground. This is on Mark Twain Avenue. Now, this Mark Twain Avenue, we've talked about how the old guys went and they found the creek, and they took their portion of the creek and they built over it. This is where, so you've got a pretty nice archway, concrete, pretty good floor, but you can see there's some significant failure there. So people have gone in there and they've used some corrugated pipe, put it up. It actually stops right here on both edge, and then they poured concrete on top. Not a bad idea, but it's old enough that it's failing. The other things that are coming in here, here's an old terracotta line, and we're confident that it's not sanitary. However, you can see that just that penetration into that wall has created some significant failure all the way up and in through and across that arch. And so as we keep looking at Mark Twain Avenue, this is most interesting. You can see where this is where someone originally had a nice concrete arch. They're tying it into a stone wall where they had patched probably the previous stone wall with another cap of concrete, but it continues to fail. This is down where the stone, this is the base, this is where you've got failure on the bottom. You lose that, you can just imagine it's going to continue to work up and continue to fail. And Mark Twain Avenue, I don't know if this is this an active line, or do we know? You don't remember, Matt? Don't remember. But so we end up having all of these. So when we start talking about stormwater failures, how they can become complicated if we just allow it to fail as it fails without planning, that you're going to end up, this could be pretty catastrophic if we lose not just stormwater, but we lose a water line, we use telecommunication lines, etc. We've got a pretty significant issue. This is Valley Street. And I tell you, I'm just impressed with the quality of work that they put in initially. But if you look at this floor a little bit closer, the floor is completely gone. That it has gone through there, and this is where the old stonework exists, and it is completely gone, continues to wash, and it's going to end up eroding edges. Just on general, this is downtown, and that is something that needs to be cleaned out, and we need to have the people, the machinery to be able to do that, and that is very consistent throughout town. That we have just the volume of dirt and things that we're going to have to take and clean, and that becomes a hazardous material that we have to pay for to dispose of appropriately. And then finally, this is the police department, and this is actually turning around and looking upstream where this ends up. I've seen a video where we've gone in there, and you end up getting to where it's about 2.5 feet tall. But that archway is still there, and it's quite beautiful. But there's a couple of places where there's stone that has slid out and away from that arch. So we have a couple other failure points that are in there that we're going to have to pay attention to. But then this is where, so right here is where that keystone has fallen out. It's on the ground, but you can see this stone has slipped out as well, and we've got more to do. And then here is Webb Street. Again, if you look at I look at the stonework, not too bad, but you can see where it's failed. And all the way up and in there, you've got more of these huge stones filled in with lots of dirt and mud that have come into it. It's gathering, and the stonework in there, while it's pretty good, we anticipate that it has a limited lifespan. So that is just some of the things that we have inspected. We have needs to keep our community safe, and please, we tie all of this back to driving, safety, keeping our roads healthy. And so we need to do something. And so while I cannot ask anybody to vote yes, I can tell you that if we get this passed, we're going to be moving as quickly as we can to start repairing, assessing, figuring out who owns it. Some of this is going to be on private property, and I'm going to be coming to you guys for your wisdom on how do we handle that. And we're going to be able to figure out if it's theirs, if it's ours, who's going to pay for it. We're going to clean it, we're going to assess it, and then we're going to take the most vital, and we'll start repairing just as quick as we can. So this is a joke. If you're going to vote yes, go vote on April 2nd. If you're going to vote no, go vote on April 3rd.
What was the date? Did you say you're going to be at the Legion?
It's the 21st is going to be at the
Legion itself.
Legion. Yes, American Legion. Also on the 28th, up at the Country Club,
You know what time that's going to be?
it's going to be 7 o'clock on the 21st. I believe it's the 28th at lunchtime. The Chamber of Commerce, they take and they hold a annual, well, it's not annual, it's sort of a election day where they let all of the people that are running for election, people representing propositions, they will be there presenting then, and that's the Stormwater Action Committee doing that. Sorry. I'm going to get very quickly. I've got a couple of things just talking about the benefits of public power. And if you'll read that and look at it, probably the biggest benefit is the fact that you are a board that are accountable to the public. And with that, they have a voice. So when someone's got a complaint about us, they don't like our rates, we set our rates. You are a regulatory board. And what you bring to the table is a great benefit. It's a great strength to this community. If we were a for-profit, if we were an Ameren, they hold their meetings behind closed doors. You couldn't go listen to what they're doing. You wouldn't know what their plans are. You wouldn't know what their goals are, etc. You have that right out in the open, and that's a power. That's a strength that we have. And with that, I'm going to give you some homework, because we're going to be having our budget. We've got our 5-year plan that we're working on. We're doing those things. What I would like to do is ask you in the future, you have both my evaluation, where we're headed, but what are our personal or company, not personal, what is our goals? And the way to start is by identifying, if you'll just take one and pass it, I guess one more for Ethan if he wants it for records. This is a just kind of a quick breakdown of our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, we can do that as a group if you want, or I think we've done it in the past sort of as a homework assignment. We would really like to know what we're doing wrong. It's very important to know what our weaknesses are, to take and improve those. We would like to know what you see as our strengths, so that we can maintain those and even improve on those. And then the opportunities and threats. And sometimes the strengths and weaknesses are what we look out on from the outside looking in. Those opportunities and threats are sometimes an internal as you look at that. So I'm just going to give those to you. I would ask you to take and consider that, and then we could have some discussions. And I still look at our mission that we're doing. We're providing safe, reliable utilities with the best customer service at a reasonable price. And I think we can pat ourselves on the back. I think we've done okay, but we want to continue to improve. And so that's what we're looking at. That is all I have.
All right. Any questions of Darren on his general manager report?
No.
No, but thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
All right, haven't heard none. Looks like Matt Munslinger, operations report, please.
Good afternoon. You'll see we had relatively few outages this past month, all associated with animals, squirrels and birds. And so again, we're continuing to install the squirrel guards in areas where we're continually having these interactions. I know they're focusing on going out into the Lake Apollo area and actually changing out some of the leads to the transformers, so it will disrupt power to the individual customers, but at the same time, we're making improvements, replacing stuff that has been in place since that was constructed, and then also hopefully reducing squirrel interactions in the future. Tree trimming, as you can see by the outage report, is working, and we're actually nearing the end of the use of the backyard easement machine. That is something that started back in 2021. After the windstorm, we brought our contractor in with an easement machine and has been using that to heavily trim backyards, areas where it typically required a climbing crew. It's harder and harder to find those people, and just the productivity of them as they're having to expend energy to climb. Their productivity is low compared to being able to drive this easement machine in the backyard and use the mechanical power to get them up there and get the stuff trimmed. So we're seeing the benefits of that. Another thing we've been working on the electric side the past few months is assisting the contractor down with the 3rd Street viaduct replacement. We do have two 34.5 circuits and one 13.8 circuit that go over that area. And so we've been planning some outages. We've rerouted the service to the Armory. We're going to reroute the service to the JC Hall, or the JC building down there, and rerouted another service just to give them clearance as necessary to get their equipment in there and get that viaduct replaced in as quick as time frame as they can. Just potential of flooding, that type of thing, and so. They're planning on taking it out of service the 1st of April is what they're planning now, is to shut that down. We own the lights that are on it, and so the first few days we're going to be on site taking those light standards down and transporting them and storing them, and then probably asking you all to surplus them at some point in the future. Water, you'll see that we're trending lower than we have in the past 2 years as far as production at the water plant. Part of that is in relation to our that meter we found that was bad last year, and so the previous 2 years has shown more water sent to the system than was actually done. We do have a GAC replacement this week or next week, I can't remember which, but excuse me. Then we had a little bit of change in our personnel up there. We had John Caudell, who took the senior operator position, and that allowed Ben West to move to 3rd shift operator. And then we've got a new to the water plant, but he currently works in SCADA. We got Danny Dowdy that will be going as our new 2nd shift operator. So as we get people trained, we're able to move people. So it'll take a few weeks before we get those changes made. Had one SSO in the wastewater collection system. Again, we're having a lot of problems with these flushable wipes that aren't flushable. We got one lift station we got an issue with, and so that are clogging up our pumps. And so we're working with Erica to get more information out there that just because they say flushable, dispose of that in the trash can and not down the toilet. Toilet paper or human waste are the only two things that we need to be sending down so we can treat it. So The sewer crew did have a large dig down on Church Street where we had to close it down. There was a sewer main that tied in without a manhole, and we found out why after we started excavating. The main is about 20 feet deep, and there was an old cistern that was directly adjacent to it, and so it didn't allow the sewer main to tie in with a manhole, and so they dug down and made the repair, but it required us to rent some equipment that we don't presently have. So, but we did complete the use of our labor, so it kept the cost relatively minimal. We're down to one electric meter that needs to be changed over to the new system. We're working with the owner of the properties and an electrician. I think they're just waiting on get the additional equipment and schedule time. And then that will be completed, and then everything will be able to be converted over to the new system, and then we'll go back and start removing some of the components of the old system that are having to be maintained at this point. So everything else seems to be as in the past, so I'll take any questions if you have any.
Any questions?
If you've ever seen a hole that's 20 feet deep, it is remarkable. And next time we do that, if we get anything close to that, I'm going to come, I will invite you. We'll put the hard hat on you and your safety equipment and look at it. We won't let you in the hole. But to realize what these guys are doing between buildings, structures, going down 20 feet deep with the shoring that you have to have, all of the safety, getting down there and being able to make that, find the leak, make the repair, etc. These guys are incredibly skilled. It is a lot of work. It's very dangerous. They do it right, so it's not dangerous. But a 20-foot hole is like the Grand Canyon when you're standing there looking at it. So
Take lots of pictures.
yeah, it's an amazing thing. So when we do it again, and we will, we know we will. It is what they do is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I came across one of those when I did a remodel on a rural type rental. You open that thing up and you look down and it's, what the heck? Yeah. All right, any other questions, comments? All right, Matt, if you could move on to the projects report, please.
Sure thing. Water treatment plant roof. You'll recall we had some issues with some alignment of the panels they were installing. They've since got that remedied. We're waiting to put up some final trim on that. And then you all approved the replacement of the pump house and the Pleasant Street booster station roofs. And they're waiting on materials to arrive before they can get that completed. The gravity filter media replacement at the water plant. Materials have been ordered. Look like they're going to show up around the first part of May. And so the contractor wants to get in here in April, get one filter taken out of service, cleaned out. As part of this project, we're going in and painting the interiors of the filters as well. And so that requires a couple weeks of cure time. And so if they come in, start removing material and get everything painted, it should fit that time frame of when the materials will start showing up and they can start put that back into service as quickly as possible. Also, as part of that project, we're replacing some of the meter that was found faulty at the water plant, and we're installing 2 additional ones. Those meters are supposed to arrive sometime this week, and the contractor would like to get up here and get them installed as quickly as possible. We're continuing to monitor our water loss. I think this month we were in the 12 to 13%. It's something we're continuing to work with Eden Brothers and with our in-house staff to monitor sensor locations throughout the system. We're looking at pressures, looking at different flows. We're going to correlate that and build a model with our tank elevations as well. And so hopefully it's more of a predictive system to where we can identify leaks that are out there before they become big leaks and we're not having to repair them after hours. Downtown SSO elimination. One big project we're working on in that area is the lining of the mains outside the flood wall. Like the South Main areas, when they tore down them houses, we don't know exactly what they did to plug the services off to the mains, but if they plugged it back in the basement of the old building, you still have that service lateral that's out in the front yard that is susceptible to groundwater infiltration. And so we worked with Trek and ultimately a contractor to put together a bid package of lining the mains and basically sealing over any of the old service taps. And that way we've got manhole, and one solid piece of pipe in between, so we don't have that groundwater coming in. And we got a really good price on that. Just under our $500,000 is what we got the price for. And so we're going to work on that project. Hopefully, have it completed sometime later this summer. It'll be a couple weeks. They'll come in and do some TVing and cleaning, and then they'll come back once they get the pipe liner made. They'll come back and it'll take about 5 weeks for them to install all of that. And we're going to work on the 15 to 8-inch or 6-inch pipes right now, and then take a year off and do some flow monitoring to see the impact that we had. I mean, not that I wish for high river levels, but you do not see the benefits of what you've done without some of the high river levels. So we'll see what the impact is, and then we'll look at maybe lining some of the 15 to 30-inch pipes, where that gets costly because of all the bypass pumping that is necessary to get that completed. And so that'll be a culmination of 2 years worth of our budget to get that done, because it's going to run roughly $500,000 just to get the bypass pumping in here. So
That's in the future budget.
yep, it's in the 5-year capital plan. Yep. North Street Storm Sewer. In February, the council approved a contract with S&A Equipment and Builders out of Fulton to do the. It was the only phase, but due to the low cost of completing that project, $1.6 million roughly, they're going to go. I'm going to go present to council tomorrow night on authorizing the engineer to do a phase 2, which would continue the project up Mark Twain Avenue, since there was $5 million worth of ARPA money secured for that project. And rather than turn that money back, we're going to try to meet all the time frames and get that money spent. We do have to have those monies allocated by the end of 2024. All of them doesn't have the construction, nor the contractor doesn't have to be paid until the end of 2026. So Bear Creek Dam Spillway, again, that's ARPA money that we secured. Truck Design Group was awarded that project, designing and bidding that project. They were on site last week doing the survey work for it, and then they were utilizing LiDAR in addition to just regular survey methods. And so they've got that information. They're going to go back, clean it up, and see where our existing conditions are to what the spillway was originally constructed or designed to be constructed to. And then they'll be putting together a bid package, and we'll go out later this year with that. And then on the electrical side of things, we're continuing to secure materials to replace Indian Mound substation. Again, we got some materials that are 50 plus weeks from the time we order them till the time we get them. So we're shooting for an April of 2025 completion date on that project. And then we're continuing to work with BHMG on our tie line replacement or installation between Oakwood substation and Southside substation. That's all I have, unless you all have any questions.
All right, anybody have questions?
I have a question. Is there a, let me see here, my handwriting. Is there a cost to the BPW for water loss?
There is. I mean, we got the pumping cost, so we got electricity, we got the cost of the chemicals it took to treat that water, and so any water that we put out that we're not gaining revenue from, we do lose that. So
Okay, is that figured into the budget? I saw that the water budget was off a little bit, or is that ever figured into that, or?
it's figured into the expense side of it. I mean, we're paying, the water department has to pay the electric department for electricity we're having to pay our chemical cost to our chemical vendors. But the reason the variation between that would be more towards sales, and not seeing that revenue.
It's an unrecognized cost. So we're producing something that we can't sell. And so we're losing, if we're losing, 500,000 gallons a year, that's 500,000 gallons of water that I can't sell to our customers. And so if we can keep that efficiency down, that's what we got to do. Now, I'll tell you, except we're going to lose water no matter what.
Right.
Industry-wide, there's a benchmark that's usually around 10 to 12%. If you're at 10%, you're tight a cut. That's pretty darn tight. That's really, really, really good. You've got hydrant flushing. There's things whenever you have a broken line. Often you don't know how long it's been broken or how much water is really coming out, but we can estimate that. And so all of those things are lost water that you're not going to be able to sell. But we're trying to get to that benchmark of that 12%. We're doing everything we can to drive it down to that 12%. And that would be a more reasonable, that's a goal that we're shooting for, to hit that benchmark. Does that
So
make
we're
anything
real
you'd add to that?
close to that now then, right, at the 12, 13%?
This month we were, yeah.
This month, so.
Oh, but overall, it's not that.
No, past year it's been up in the mid-20s probably.
Okay.
When I first got here, it was in the 30s.
Yeah, I knew it was higher. for
It
a
was
while.
very high. And so all of these guys have done a fantastic job
But
in
it's
the field and here.
We've spent quite a bit of money in the past year
Yeah.
trying to find it. We brought a company in that had listening devices. They went and listened on almost every valve and trying to pinpoint leaks. They found, I think about 40 leaks is what they found. We since fixed those. We're working with Eden Brothers to do monitoring. They can see flow patterns, and when something's kind of out of whack, they can contact us and send us out to look for things. We're going to bring a guy in later this summer that goes around and does the listening on the valves and a much smaller scale. But again, just trying to keep in front of this. So.
Good job, thank you.
And the value of our water that we're putting, so if we can produce less water to serve our community, there's less water going through our biggest expense, which is the filters, the GAC. So we're saving there. It affects every part of our operation, having to produce a little bit less, getting 100% revenue out of what we are producing. We're just being much, much more efficient.
Great, thank you.
Good point. I never thought about that. All right, any other questions of Matt? Yeah, if not, then we move to the financials with Paul, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon. We will jump right into financials for February 2024. Apologize. All right, we'll start with the balance sheet. Compared to last month, there's really not much to report. Very little change in the balance sheet. Utility-wide, total assets were consistent with a month ago, and compared to last year, down about 4%. And so looking at our profit and loss for the month compared to budget, utility-wide net income for February was positive $498,000 more than what we had budgeted for the month. So net purchase power costs in the electric fund specifically were actually the lowest that we've seen since November of 2021. So if you'll recall, 2022 is where we had the most volatility. Last year we had a little bit of stability, but still pretty up and down. And so we're finally starting to see some more stability out in the electric markets just a little bit. And so that led to the lower purchase power for the month. The other reason why net purchase power was lower in February is because we had that significant cold snap in January where we paid much higher prices for our power. However, the credits that we received back for what's sold from Prairie State back into the market were also much higher, and those operate on about a 2-week lag, and so those were recognized in early February, so that also drove down our costs for the month. In the water fund, Oh, and also in electric, we had revenues and operating expenses that were right at budget. And we've seen those lag pretty much most of the year thus far, so it was good to see those catch back up. The water fund did finish the month about $59,000 behind budget. We did recognize our carbon changeout expense in February, and that is about a $98,000 expense quarterly that we recognize, and so that pushed our expenses in the water fund over budget by about 16%. The sewer fund had an excellent month financially. It did outperform in all categories there. So compared to last year, utility-wide net income was about $685,000 more this year. Again, that was primarily due to net purchase power, which was much lower. Our KWH sales in the electric fund were about 2.8% higher this year than last. And then the water fund compared to last year did worse in the current year. And again, that was due to the timing of our carbon expense. And then we had the sewer fund perform much better this year than last. Revenues, specifically in that fund, were about $28,000 higher this year. So year to date now, we're inching closer to the end of our fiscal year in June. Our net loss in the electric fund specifically now is at $2.1 million. And keep in mind, we didn't do the rate increase until October, so we did still have 3 months at the old rates, which is driving that net loss in that fund. Net purchase power, despite the positive month in February, is still $289,000 more than what we had budgeted year to date. The water fund is now slightly behind its budgeted net income, and then despite also the positive month in the sewer fund, it still sits behind its budgeted net income by about $143,000. The primary reason in the sewer fund is lower revenues there, as they're about $126,000 less than what we had budgeted. Compared to last year, much of the same story. Total revenues this year are up about $670,000. That's again due to the rate increases in electric and water. But net purchase power is $685,000 more than last year, which basically offsets the increase in revenues. And then finally, operating expenses overall are up about 3%, which pretty well falls right in line with what we're seeing in inflation. So that makes a lot of sense to us. Other news and items to point out, if you'll scroll down and look at the dashboard of our key performance indicators, our debt service coverage ratio, with the positive month in the electric fund, we had an improvement in that ratio from a -3 to now a -1.87. Still well below our goal, but we did see improvement there. The water fund ratio stayed pretty stable, and sewer did also see a slight improvement as well. We've got our cash reserves on there, as well as our current investments of those cash reserves and where they're being held. The deposit rates that we continue to see are holding pretty steady, so our portfolio on our cash reserves does continue to improve. And then we've got all the checks written for the month, as well as our credit card statement. And that pretty well does it for the financial report for February, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions?
No.
Nope.
It's pretty complete.
Okay.
So if we're past that, it looks like you're still up with the unfinished business item.
All right, we will move on to our budget. You'll recall that just 2 months ago, we went through our 5-year capital plan, and those would be capital items where we plan to spend money on construction or types of assets, vehicles, things like that. This is more looking at the operating side of things, the expenses that we would typically spend within 1 year. And so our operating budget is looking at next fiscal year beginning on July 1st. Again, for those that don't know, this budget is required to be finalized by May 15th and provided to city management at that time. And so our typical schedule, our time frame is we'll get a draft in front of you at this meeting. We will then have you approve the final budget in April, and then we will present that and be available to present that at the city council meeting there in May, and then obviously provide it by that May 15th deadline. The primary question that we have tonight, since you've only had this thing for a few days, is whether or not you would prefer to chew on it for a couple weeks, and we do a budget workshop in early April, which we did last year, and we've done that in the past, where we can really drill down and spend about an hour getting in the weeds, looking at some of the fine details of the budget. Or if you're feeling up to it and have the appetite, we can kind of get down and do a little bit more of an overview, but get down in the weeds a little bit tonight. I am prepared to do so. And so it's really up to you on what you would prefer when it comes to reviewing the budget for next year.
Any thoughts?
The workshops always seem to work out pretty decent.
That's what we did last year. You spent, what, an hour or two, some evening. I think it was 4 or 5 o'clock. We did that last year.
I think we did 4 o'clock, and we spent just over an hour. I will say that if we did that, we might even kind of attach that planning session that Darren just put in front of you along with it. So we might be looking at maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, somewhere in that time frame. But typically we would do that in early April to allow time to get it on the agenda for the April board meeting, ready to be finalized. And so I think the date we had thrown out there, if you do want to do a workshop, would be I think we'd thrown out April 9th, but I think there is a city budget workshop that same evening that is at 5 o'clock. So we could either do April 9th earlier in the afternoon, or we could look at April 10th, but anywhere later than that won't give us enough time to get on the agenda for the board meeting on April 15th. It's going to be an early board meeting in April.
April 10th? 4 o'clock.
April 10th
Works for
at
me.
4, does that work for everybody?
Yeah, that works for me. How about you, Phil?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay.
4 o'clock, April 10, Bill?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll plan on that. That'd be good.
Okay, all right. We will plan on that, and you've got most of the information there. I will say one of the biggest items that always sways a big portion of our budget is the capacity auction, which will be in late April, and so it always occurs after the board meeting. But we can talk a little bit about more about that at the workshop. But are there any questions tonight then before we plan on meeting again on the 10th?
I just have a comment. Page 44 that Paul has really been addressing is very informative. Just that one page covers a lot of budget philosophy, if you will, and direction, including, in other words, one of the items I noticed was Prairie State provides 1/2 of our load, a big deal. And fixed Prairie State costs are up due to inflation, but we're referring to inflation at around 2 to 3% as we look at the budget. Is that correct?
That's right.
As well as the CPI being in that 2 to 3 range, which is phenomenal. A year ago, we were all about to jump off the edge of the world because it was going to be 8% and 9%. Things have turned around except for food costs, I think. That's the only notes I have. That's good. But we'll address those during the budget stuff.
Certainly. Yeah, and if there's anything specific that you really do want to drill down into before that workshop, certainly feel free to reach out and let me know. And
Yeah, you defined on page 44 capacity and energy items, and maybe a discussion about definition and how those are developed will help.
certainly, yep. Okay,
All righty, we
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
in there? Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
And on to new business with Darren.
We are looking at beginning I'll turn on my mic. The last two pages of your agenda, we have a page that comes from Voltus. What we have is we're looking at beginning with a pilot program for demand response. And I'm going to talk just a little bit at a high level. What we know is that generation is expensive. And what the community of generators have found is that it's easier to avoid paying or generating it than to actually go and build a generator to provide something you need. The biggest and most expensive power that you can buy is that is on the peak. So the hottest day of the summer, the coldest day of winter, it's that last little bit of electricity that you have to buy, and that can be in the thousands of dollars, hundreds and thousands of dollars for that bit of power. But what they've done, they have aggregators. And what an aggregator does is he will go to a business or to a company or to a hospital or to a school and say, all right, if I talk to you, if I come to you and tell you next hour you need to take and drop off all of your power load, I will pay you for that. So they're avoiding actually having to generate that power by them dropping off so that demand drops, the actual demand. And these aggregators then take and they are selling this capacity that they have virtually garnered, and they can pay back to those people that are willing to shed load a portion of what they're making. Now, Voltus is one company that's done it. There's several others that do it. And what Voltus has done, they currently have about 500 megawatts of power that they have accumulated throughout the MISO service area. Mostly it's in Illinois, some, I believe, in Michigan, and now they're talking about here in Missouri. They have done this for Spartan out of Sparta, Illinois. So they've already done it there. They've shown they can do it. What we would like to do, and we've talked with them, we've vetted them, and we've done everything we can. We've talked to MPUA about it. What we would like to do is for 1 year, allow Voltus to be the aggregator using Spartan. What Spartan has to do is they're going to take, and we've looked at their load and at their peak usage. Voltus, because of MISO's demand, so MISO watches that market and they kind of know when those peaks are going to come. That hottest day of the year, they're going to call up Spartan and say, all right, turn off your load. And Spartan will take and drop their load for 6 hours or 4 hours maximum. They will drop it off, and that will reduce the load on the entire system, but they get to use that virtual power loss as their value in the MISO market, and that's where they make their money. Our value to this is, number one, we have a happy customer, because what can happen if it all works out like they say, they could make in the probably $50,000 to $60,000 in 1 year. Spartan doing this. We will get nothing. However, what it benefits us is in the long run, if they're able to actually shave that peak, when we go to the market next year, instead of us having to buy 56 or 55 megawatts of capacity, we'll only have to buy 54. So there's a value to us in the long run. We won't see it. It's going to be an avoided cost, but that will be our benefit. If they fail to do it, we just go on as business as normal. If they aren't able to shave that peak, we were already going to buy 55 megawatts of capacity. We're going to buy 55 megawatts of capacity next year. But if they can, we benefit, and they have to do it at least twice. And what happens is MISO will have a load shedding event. They call them, they have to drop that load. One of the things they've said is that in the last 3 years, Zone 5 of MISO, Missouri, has not had that load shedding event, and their people have still would have been paid money, some, not, I don't believe the entire amount had they been able to shave, but they would be able to they would have some revenue for being in the program. This is a pilot. We have the ability, if you tell me no, then we'll drop it and it's done. If so, they'll be in for 1 year. And in 1 year from now, they'll come back and we will either allow them to sign up and do it again or not. We had some concerns about allowing as a virtual generator. Does that give them other access to any of our customers? We will be the gatekeeper for that. We have actually gone previously to our larger customers and said, are you interested in having an interruptible load? And all of them said no. For General Mills to say, we're going to just shut down this process. They've got food, FDA requirements that they've got to maintain. And to this point, they have said no. But if this works, if it works well with Spartan, we will expand that and see if we want to offer it to others. I have done this when I was on the East Coast. I had an aggregator that worked with us there. The hospital did it. It worked fine. It was all right. And we had there was no harm. There was no negative influence on us doing that. So my recommendation, I would ask that you approve that we move forward with this pilot program for 1 year with Spartan and Voltus.
So what benefit do we get?
Two, number one, we've got a happy customer. Number two is we hope they will be able to shave that peak, thus reducing our cost of capacity in the future.
And either way, whether it is shaved or not, there's no harm to us.
Correct.
There's no cost or.
Correct. And so one of the things they have done is that they'll have our current metering. We're able to read what is our current interval reading every.
We're doing 5-minute interval for commercial and industrial.
These guys, so every 5 minutes we can read their meter. They want it much faster than that. Matthew, what are they asking? 30-second intervals?
We're going to do it at a minute interval.
1 minute interval. So they want to be very precise. They are paying for that metering. They're going to be paying for our labor to put that in and all of that. So this, again, it really is at no cost to us.
That we gain if the shedding works as planned. It shuts off 2 or 3. I can't remember what he said. Maybe watts that we would buy.
It will reduce the capacity
Capacity.
requirements that we would have. But again, because of capacity, what happens is we use it this year, they measure it, and they say, all right, that's what you've got to buy next year as well.
Right.
And so if we can reduce that, that benefits us the next year, the next year, the next year.
Do we have a lot of administrative to deal with that, or is that all on Voltus and they'll provide documentation that they have done it?
We are working with them. There will be some administrative. We've had discussions with them, meetings with them. But no, there's not much. Once that's done, once we get the meter, so Matthew is probably the heaviest falls on him, making sure that metering goes in without it affecting us. But other than that, no, it's fairly hands-off for us.
So they have access to the metering through NISC?
They will not. There's going to be a component fitted to our meter that Voltus monitors through their own means. It will be a cellularly attached modem that they download data from that meter.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like there's any downside to it, really, at all.
And we do have, or will have in their contract where they're required to notify us if there is any event or any event where they call on Spartan so that we have that, we can go back and verify, kind of what happened and determine how it impacted our peak, things like that.
There's no recourse on them if their customer, which is our customer, doesn't comply.
They will have in there, so if they call on the customer and the customer doesn't shed the load that they've said they can, that's between them and they have their own penalties that they, I believe if, what I had in the past is if they missed 2 events, that they were taken out of the program, that they could not participate in the program and couldn't be re-signed for like 4 years, is what was done back east.
Yep, yep, I think it's a good idea.
So do you need a motion there?
Would love to hear a motion to approve allowing this pilot program to proceed.
I'll make a motion to allow the pilot program to proceed.
Well, in 1 second.
A second.
And a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, sure.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much. That is all that I have.
That's it for new business. All right. What was I gonna say? Darren, what's the status of what we had talked about where we're going to either consider or actively move on eliminating the hedging?
We're going to go fairly slow at that. I think we need to talk about that at our budget workshop.
Okay.
And we will absolutely look at, so we need to look at what our reserve funds, where they're at, what direction we're going, and just how quickly we could move in that direction.
Okay.
We'll talk at our budget workshop, talking about what some of the hedging offers have been. Right now, we're feel like we're in really good shape for the next year. And going forward from there, we need to talk about that strategy and what we want to do. So let's,
Yeah, so that's not something you can take your foot off the gas instantly.
no, not at all.
Yeah, I knew that we're committed for a
Yep.
certain amount of time.
Yep, we've got some commitments that we're already locked into. We're going to do that and just see how we can move forward.
Okay.
And timing wise, it'll be after April 2nd. We'll have some discussion about stormwater, hopefully.
Okay. All right, anybody have anything else in this business area? If not, do we have any comments from the city attorneys?
Unless the board has any question, then I have nothing.
Okay. And anything else we want to talk about? Okay. Guess I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you. Very good questions.